Hey, welcome to our National Awareness Month informational webinar with the Government Affairs team. And first, obviously, we'd like to introduce our president, Carrie Speranza. Carrie, welcome to the webinar. And why is this important to you? Why is this something that you started driving? I think about September.
Yeah, so I mean, we've all heard of National Police Week. We've heard of National Firefighter Week. I feel like there's a week or a month for everybody else except for emergency managers. And this is something that I've been thinking about for years. And I know you have too, Todd. It's just a matter of timing. And I felt like now was the best time for us to bring forward this concept of education and advocacy for our leadership this year and really start an annual coordinated effort amongst emergency managers, both public, private, and nonprofit sector, to just bring more awareness to the field of emergency management.
So with us today, we have our Government Affairs leadership. Do you want to introduce them?
I do, yes. First, so we have the Government Affairs Chair, Mary Jo Flynn Nevins.
Hi there. So I'm Mary Jo Flynn Nevins. I'm the chair of the Government Affairs Committee. And I just want to give a quick shout out to our fabulous team in Government Affairs, Mick Fleming and Spencer Hawkins, who have been instrumental as vice chairs.
Excellent. And then we have the Director of Government Affairs, Thad Hughley.
Hey, everybody. Thad Hughley, Director of Government Affairs for IEM. I've been in this position since late 2016. And obviously very exciting times in government affairs, very interesting times. So look forward to talking with everybody more about how to get more people involved in government affairs work.
I think the wild part about this thing is when first started thinking about this National Awareness Month for Emergency Management, it had less urgency, and I feel like we have a little bit of urgency going on now with the way things are going. So what is Awareness Month, and then why are we doing this, and who is it for? Those are the big questions. Like, why are we doing this, and who is it for? Is it just for those state and local emergency managers, or what's it for?
No, it is for any emergency management, disaster management, risk management, business continuity, and crisis management professional that would like to participate. And so what is Awareness Month? I touched upon it earlier before. It truly is a coordinated industry-wide awareness, education, and advocacy campaign to promote the capabilities of emergency management. And public, private, and nonprofit emergency managers are encouraged to participate and meet with their elected officials, chief executives, senior decision makers, any influencer that can influence their emergency management program. And really, it is to educate and inform them on the value of your emergency management program, whether it's for your jurisdiction or an organization. And one of the things that I like to emphasize is really we are trying to foster more champions for emergency management. And that really is the end goal of the whole event. But it's not going to be just a one and done activity. It is anticipated this is going to be an annual National Emergency Management Awareness Month event.
Absolutely. And so as we're going through this process, if somebody wants to get involved, what are the general expectations of what's going on?
Yeah, so the expectations, I would say, are just any sort of participation, right? As we've been leading up to this effort, one of the things that I've been saying to anybody and everybody who will listen is the purpose of this is to inform and educate on the value of emergency management. One conversation is better than no conversation. 5 meetings are better than no meetings. And so you have an entire month to prioritize who you want to meet with, whether or not it's your chief executive within your organization or your local elected official or even your state elected official. We have an entire month to have those meetings, to have those conversations, and to help them better understand the mission of emergency management and the value that we bring to their organization or their jurisdiction and community.
Dad, I want to pull something out of you on this one. As the government affairs professional in the room, what are your expectations? What do you think that emergency managers can do to help promote the Emergency Management Awareness Month within their jurisdiction and their states and their community?
Well, Todd, I've focused most of my career on the federal level, but really, sort of the same principles of engagement and education apply to all levels of government. And as we all know, emergency management is a federal, state, local partnership. So all levels of government are involved in this. And I just think that emergency managers, for whatever reason, have not done a great job sort of talking about what you do on a day-to-day basis to make communities safer. And I promise you, elected officials are more than willing and eager to be engaged with emergency managers, because you do wake up every day thinking about how to make their constituents, their communities that they represent, safer. So they want to have that relationship, but so much of that's going to fall on you, the emergency manager, to initiate that relationship with your federal, state, and local elected officials. And so, I think to some extent, some people are afraid of the word advocacy. I really would prefer that people not think of this as advocating for the profession, but educating elected officials about what you do. There is nothing that is illegal, or that you should feel like you're crossing any lines by talking to your elected officials about what you do on a day-to-day basis. If you don't want to talk about the different policy positions that we take on different issues, or the appropriations issues, that's fine. Really, what from the government relations committee standpoint for IAM, what's really most important is just to have the relationship with your elected official, invite them to come see your EOC, whether it's a fantastic EOC or it's a very substandard EOC. Have them come out and see what that looks like. Invite them to an exercise so they can see what you're doing to prepare for that next big event that is inevitably going to happen in every jurisdiction around the country. So I guess if I could say it's just develop the relationship, own the relationship, cultivate that relationship, and just make it part of your job to educate all levels of government, your elected officials, what you do.
Absolutely, and I think that's as emergency managers, that's one of the things that we really need to be involved with. Is as I say all the time, is get out from behind the desk and get out into the community and talk to your community, and that's even talking to your elected officials. And Mary Jo, from the county level, I mean, you kind of have to do this anyway. But what are your expectations? Coming from it as the chair of the Government Affairs Committee.
Well, working in local government, all, disasters are local, and so are all politics. And you are educating and seeding the next generation of elected officials who may end up in Congress or end up in the Senate. So working with your local elected officials now is priming them to understand what our needs are as they progress in their elected careers. And having that opportunity to talk with them just one-to-one is really important. And I know from my perspective, my elected officials really want to hear the personal stories that impact their who they represent, and having a handle on a little bit of that storytelling technique, making sure that you're brief in talking with them, that you're sharing things that they can replicate and discuss in other areas of their world. So those stories are really powerful because they're easy to remember, and they can come up time and again as they're advocating for us because it becomes more personal. So that is something that I've done and felt in local government. And I know a lot of people are going to be concerned about what level they are in their organization, and maybe how it might be perceived by others in their organization. So, when you're working at the government level, just make sure you're talking with your leadership. I work directly with a legislative analyst in our county who is responsible for and coordinating all that contact. We do have lobbyists that work for our county. Some agencies may not have that. So just make sure you're coordinating with some of those officials and coordinating with your leadership, being in sync with some of the priorities. I'm very lucky. I get to participate in a legislative platform in my organization and make recommendations on what the board will approve. And so it gives me a little bit more latitude, if you will, to have discussions with elected officials that are in line with that platform. So I don't have to seek board approval each time. Others may not have that opportunity, but just seek out those elements that you can. And like Thad said, it's not advocacy. It's not lobbying in a way that you're trying to ask for a specific vote or change a particular thing. You're just trying to let them know what the important things are that you do for the community and how that can be sustained either through funding or support or appreciation, whatever it might be.
So I'm lucky where I work. I work in City Hall. As I, walk. I guess I could be lucky or unlucky, depends on what you look at it. As I walk through the halls of City Hall, I can run. I run into the mayor all the time, and to the city manager, and into other executives throughout the city. If you don't work in City Hall, what are some of your tips and tricks to be able to get in front of the elected officials? Let's start with MJ.
So a lot of times reaching out to them, they will hold public forums regularly. That is a great opportunity to educate. If you are attending their public forum, oftentimes they have their staff where they themselves will be present and will hear what you have to present. So utilize those opportunities for those public forums. Thad already mentioned inviting them to your emergency operations center, letting them see what that looks like. The trainings, exercises, things that they can participate in. You might want to think of things that make better photo opportunities that can be, used in their newsletters and things that they put out for their constituents. And just, think outside the box in ways that you can coordinate with them on different levels. If you're hosting your own preparedness fairs or events, make sure they're invited. And just, be open to having those discussions as they come up.
Todd, can I add something to something Mary Jo just said? So the congressional calendar, every year at the beginning of the year, they put out a calendar, and there's certain weeks that Congress is going to be in session, and weeks when they're going to be back in their districts, meeting with constituents. As a former congressional staffer, I know for a fact that every elected official is looking for things to fill up, when they're home during that week, or for the entire month of August, which happens to be sort of the key month here. They will be home. They are looking for opportunities to go into communities, to meet with, different organizations, or to tour businesses or different things. I promise you, if you reach out, they will be more than happy to try to find time to come visit an EOC or to watch an exercise. And so it's just a matter of reaching out to someone. And this is on the federal level. That's the area that I'm most familiar with. But it is there's no magic to getting this set up. It's just a matter of calling and saying, hey, we want to schedule a tour. When is it convenient, for the member of Congress to be there? And I promise you that they will come visit and check it out. And it's just a great opportunity. And like Mary Jo said, you can get pictures that they can post in their newsletters back to constituents and make it beneficial for both you and for them. So I encourage everybody to start now. I mean, because their schedules will start filling up in August. Start now. It'll take several weeks to get it set up. But once you get it set up, I mean, it should be pretty straightforward from there.
That's great advice. Start now. Always right.
One more thing. I'm sorry, okay. Todd. Let me just give a specific example.
Okay.
So Mike Evans, former board member of IEM, is Mobile County, Alabama, and I mean now Mike's got a world-class EOC. Most people's EOCs aren't quite to the standards that Mike's is. But when Senator Britt from Alabama was elected, she was appointed to the Senate Appropriations Committee. And in addition to that, she chaired the subcommittee that funds FEMA and the Department of Homeland Security. So I reached out to Mike and said, hey, this is a great opportunity to get her up to speed on emergency management issues. Can we invite her to the EOC in Mobile County? He did. we had other local elected officials there, gave her a full tour, talked about what emergency managers do, and it went off perfectly. That's sort of the perfect example of how it can be done. And so, there's a template for it. It's not a difficult template, but that's how that should be replicated throughout jurisdictions across the United States.
So Carrie, I'm gonna bring you into the conversation here. Same thing. So, as first of all, you're on the private sector when it comes to your job. How do you engage with officials, and what should people do?
Absolutely. So in my case, I actually see two different avenues for private sector emergency managers to get involved. Business and industry emergency managers often have other titles, where they're in loss prevention or security or business continuity or supply chain. But they should absolutely feel like they can participate in this event. So as someone who's in the private sector, the way that I would go about doing this and participating is actually working myself up through the chain. So I would start with my direct supervisor, tell them my ultimate goal of getting to the chief executive officer or the chief operating officer to educate them and inform them on the value of my program to not just the organization and its services or supply chain, but also to its workforce. And throughout the course of the month, I would work my way up that chain of command, hoping to get in front of the big boss. The second way for private sector emergency managers to get involved is as a private citizen and as a resident, go to your county or city council and ask to be on the agenda and do the things that Mary Jo and Thad have been recommending, but as a private citizen as well. So there are multiple ways in which private sector emergency managers can get involved in National EM Awareness Month.
Yeah, and I want to pick up on that, Carrie, because that's a good point. As private citizens, we do have the right to go in front of our city council. And
Yes.
I can tell you about California, most or if not all of our city councils and board meetings, there's a public comments period time where you can have, anywhere from a minute to 3 minutes of time to speak on whatever you want to talk about. You can talk about the color of the sky if you wish to. But in this case, take that 3 minutes and go in front of your city council where you live, not necessarily where you work, and talk about emergency management and the awareness month. I think that's a great example of what to do.
So, yeah, I think the last piece of advice that I would have for that is to focus on the benefit to the community and the jurisdiction and the value that it brings to the government writ large, right? Versus Preparedness Month, which is in September, the month following National Emergency Management Awareness Month, which is a public information campaign, right? That's how we get our message of preparedness out to the general public, which is very different than explaining to our local or state elected officials what emergency management is and the value that we bring to our communities.
Absolutely. So what are some recent examples that you've seen amongst our membership at IEM of how emergency management has successfully engaged with elected officials? I know Thad talked about the tour of the EOC, but what have you seen?
Yeah, so just recently, actually last week, Charleston County, South Carolina, I saw a news article that their director of emergency management got in front of the county council to educate them and inform them on the changes happening at the federal level relative to emergency management and how that's going to trickle down and eventually impact the local level as well. And through the meeting with the council, the director urged them to put away additional money in a rainy day fund to offset some things that we might be losing from the federal space here in the months to come. And the director was very successful in that ask. And they were able to vote through a couple $1 million worth of a rainy day fund for year one and hoping to repeat that in out years. So I think that that's a great example of somebody who just took the message of what's happening right now, took it to their county council and said, this is how it's going to impact us. And here's a solution for us to fill that gap.
So don't be afraid to talk to your elected officials.
No, absolutely.
Absolutely. Mary Jo, do you have any examples of our members working hard?
Yeah, actually, Christian Cunny took his message to his county council. I think he posted video of that on his LinkedIn profile, so anyone can go visit his LinkedIn profile and see him in action and hear the message that he delivered to his council. It was just a great educational summary of what matters in emergency management and what the impacts would be felt like in his city. So it's just as simple literally as signing up to go speak at your council meeting. Or perhaps you have in California, we also have disaster councils and other forums where you can also speak. It doesn't have to be that elected official, but those people who partner and work with our elected officials or represent them in different forums. So I just wanted to call out that example as well, in addition to Carrie's, that these are our members who are doing good work, who are taking this advocacy effort direct to their communities, and they're starting to see results.
I think about John Shear over in Hawaii. I am Region 9 president, who's doing some great work in Hawaii. And then also Dave Muse over in Region 1, working with his elected officials. And they basically had a Hill Day, if you will, for the Massachusetts, I believe, elected officials. So it doesn't have to be this coordinated from the national level down. Anybody can do something. And Thad, what kind of support can you supply to people that are looking to do something like this and advice?
Well, I mean, I'm here to provide best practices and sort of my experiences on how best to do it. I mean, I'm just an email or a phone call away, and more than happy to walk anybody through this process and to help connect people with the scheduler, or with the person who handles, the staffer who handles emergency management, or the district director, whoever it might be. I'm more than happy to help people sort of walk through that and navigate it. It's not that hard, but I do think people are intimidated by it to some extent. They really shouldn't be, but having done this for 30 years, I'm more than happy to share my experiences and to make this sort of decode it for people so that they feel more comfortable advocating on behalf of the emergency management profession.
Well, Thad, thank you for the segue into my next area of question that I'm going to go into. Oftentimes, emergency managers, they are very hesitant to participate in advocacy, like we talked about earlier, even at the local level. And sometimes, they're not sure if they should even step out of that circle of comfort, if you will. Why is it okay to do so, and why should we encourage our membership to be advocates for themselves? That
for me. So I mean, elected officials have just a drinking from a fire hose and trying to keep up with all of the different issues that they have to deal with and vote on and are expected to be familiar with. And so, repetition and familiarity often helps get the results that you want out of the public policy process. So, developing the relationship, maintaining the relationship, cultivating that relationship. It can't just be a one and done kind of thing. I mean, it's just like everything else. I mean, I've heard White Graham in Charlotte-Mecklenburg County always says emergency management is all about relationships. Same thing with advocating or educating on Capitol Hill and with elected officials. It's all about the relationship and just finding that one staffer on a particular elected official staff that you get to know, and you keep them up to date on what's going on. I promise you the results. If you're willing to work at it like any other relationship, it will pay dividends. For your jurisdiction and for the entire profession.
And Todd, can I add something?
Yeah.
Sometimes in emergency management, we feel a little bit of that imposter syndrome. We can't talk to that elected official. They're way above us. You are the person that they rely on during a disaster. You are that voice in their ear that tells them how bad is. Of course you can go talk to them. You have to talk to them during a disaster. You should be talking to them before a disaster. So, part of this is how we internally process some of this and that little imposter syndrome feeling. But you are absolutely on that executive level talking to those people who matter and make decisions during a disaster. You need to be talking to them before a disaster as well. And it's vital that we, start to build those relationships, and it builds trust during the disaster, which is incredibly important. So I know this has been a mantra of Carrie, and I want to give her an opportunity to add to that if she wants. But, we are that executive level element within the EOC, and we are the representative in the face of disasters, even during times when it's quiet and peaceful.
Yeah, so I think I'll foot stomp that, Mary Jo. That was very good. The only thing I would add is we're not also suggesting that this be done in secrecy, right? So if you are nervous, be transparent with your chain of command that you intend to have an educational meeting with local or state elected officials about your program. That is perfectly acceptable. And sometimes it's those baby steps up that make you feel more comfortable with your actions. But excellent advice, MJ.
So I kind of want to segue a little bit on this and same conversation, but nonprofit sectors, some private sector emergency managers, they're a little nervous when it comes to talking to the elected officials because they don't want to be seen as lobbying, right? And Thad, you kind of alluded to the fact that there's a difference between being an advocate and education. What's your advice to nonprofit organizations that are a little hesitant to knock on somebody's door to talk to them?
Well, I mean, just to maybe put a finer point on what I said earlier. If you're not comfortable with advocating and you don't want to take a position on a particular bill, or you don't want to oppose a particular bill, or you don't want to be seen as asking for money for a grant program that you're going to benefit from, okay, I would argue that that's perfectly acceptable for you to go make that case. But what you can't, like we've said several times, you can definitely go educate these elected officials about what you do. That helps inform them so that they're more likely to probably vote our way later if they understand, what you do on a day-to-day basis. They have a relationship with you. They have been to see the EOC. They have been to see an exercise. All of that just helps inform them, as they're making public policy decisions in an environment where there are just competing demands on resources. I think we're more likely to get what we want if they know you and understand what you do.
Mary Jo, I want to pose a question to you on this one. I know that there are some. Well, we have members that are members of IEM, and there are also members of state associations. I'm one of those persons who belongs to both associations. Mary Jo, what do you say to associations that are reluctant to even want to talk to anybody on the Hill, and how do you get them to move forward?
Yeah, I think, again, we just need to make sure that we're sharing that message of what emergency management does for the community, and that they are powerful, storytellers in how their state works, and situations that they're confronting that are challenging for them, that sometimes can be fixed through legislative activity or policy making. So, being able to communicate what those needs are with elected officials, even if it's not, advocating or lobbying, and getting into those more taboo areas, we still want to educate what needs we have at the state level, and building those relationships. And, a lot of times these individuals will seek additional offices that become valuable in terms of continuing that conversation. So making sure those relationship needs are met on both sides is really important.
Hey, Todd, can I add something to that?
Please.
This is a really good point, right? So IAEM is spearheading National Emergency Management Awareness Month, but this event is open to any and all emergency managers around the country. Our resources that we are going to be putting together for this are available publicly on IAM.org. And so it doesn't really matter what association you're a member of. These resources are here, and this event is meant for everybody to participate.
Absolutely, and I think that's the most important part about this is just not an IEM event. This is a national emergency management event that we just happen to be spearheading right now. And the goal is for this to grow and to be everybody participates, no matter what level of government or no matter what level of association or not association that you are. So I think that's the big tent, if you will. I'm going to ask just one last question here, and I know we're getting close to the end of our time. But it's kind of a personal question for each of you. And I'll start with Mary Jo, and I'll end with Carrie, just so you can close us out, Carrie. Um, what does emergency management mean to you?
To me, emergency management is that opportunity to put a little bit of order to chaos using, and applying the theories that we all discuss and train on. Um, Most importantly, it's building those relationships with our executive leadership and making sure that they have the knowledge and wisdom to make those important decisions, that you're guiding them through during a disaster, that you're building that trust with them, and that will bleed over into the community. So that's an important element to me, to make sure that we are there and present for the community as well trained as we can be. But we are really the ones that are helping guide that process. We may not be making every single decision that may be at areas above or below us, but it's really important that we apply that process and guide our community through that disaster.
Thad, I know that you're not an emergency manager, but you've been around us for a long time, and you help us out a lot. What does it mean to you? What does emergency management mean to you, as a even just as a resident of the city that you live in?
Yeah, so I mean, like you said, I've never practiced a day of emergency management in my entire life. I mean, I'm a public policy guy and understand how Washington's stitched together. But what I can say is I take real pride in working for a profession of people who wake up every day thinking about how to make the communities, the states, the jurisdictions that they live in, to make those places safer, and to know that somebody has thought about these things. Now, disasters are disasters, and things don't always go right, and sometimes people get frustrated because it takes longer to fix what is horribly broken. But think about how much more frustrating that would be if you haven't had people who've actually thought about these things ahead of time and have a plan for trying to get back to normalcy again. I am incredibly proud to represent this profession on Capitol Hill, and to be the voice for local emergency managers on Capitol Hill, and working in collaboration, with the great leadership of IAM. My friend Mary Jo, chair of the Government Affairs Committee. This is a client that I can be super proud of, and I just am just thrilled that there are people who actually care about this and think about it every day. So that's what it means to me as a non-practitioner.
Thanks, Thad. Carrie, I'm sitting with you, and what does emergency management mean to you?
Yeah, so all of those things, risk awareness, risk communication, public and community and national resilience and preparedness. It's networking and relationships, like MJ said. The other thing for me is being that bellwether, being the calm in the storm, being able to bring a sense of diplomacy to the table at a time when it feels like everything is chaotic. Our job, aside from making everything make sense when it is chaotic, is to think about what might happen next. It's future planning. And I think that works to our benefit. We've thought this through. We've thought this through from exercises and planning and training. And so we are those bellwethers. We are those people that they rely upon to be calm in the storm, but also to just be aware of what we might be at risk for in our communities. And as even if I was public sector, private sector, nonprofit, as a decision maker, knowing that somebody else has thought through the worst day that we might experience and the best solutions that can be brought forward, that's a very valuable position to have at the table. And that's what emergency management is to me. It's that triple threat, right? It's strategy, it's operations, it's tactics, and it's thinking holistically across the whole playing field.
Absolutely. I always think of ourselves as the lighthouse, where we may not be able to stop the storm from coming, but we can show where the safe harbor is, and shine light on the dangers. And so that's what I think of this. So, everybody, I want to thank you for joining us today. It's been a great conversation. Please get out there and advocate for yourself. Educate our elected officials on what emergency management is, and always be out there advocating for emergency management, even if they're not during August, every day of your life. So, until next time, as always, please stay safe, stay hydrated.
When the sirens scream out loud, we're the voice that breaks the cloud. Heads out high when things go wrong. We'll guide you through with strength and song. Disaster strikes without a sound. Chaos reigns, but we're around. Public safety in our hands. Standing strong in every land. Imagine